Hi there, and welcome to Body Tempo's Inbody 360 sheet analysis. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to interpret your Inbody sheet. All right, I'm just going to make the screen nice and visual here. So the first thing I like to kind of go over is what this weight here, if you look at my little hand moving around in a circle on the page, the weight, and how to interpret what it means. So first off, the weight has some numbers underneath, and I will say, does not use any empirical estimations, but rather it uses straight up data. So if it was measuring you as if you were a cylinder. So underneath the weight, it'll have a range, what is a healthy range, which is using empirical estimation. So taking into account your age, your height, and your weight. And so for this particular individual, this is a healthy range to kind of be in between 107.1 to 145.1. So this individual is kind of right in the middle there. And then it goes over to fat-free mass. So what this number is made up of. So this person has 102.7 of lean tissue, and it's within the healthy range. And then the total body in pounds of water. So what this number is made up of water. And then it goes even further to intracellular and extracellular water. So how to interpret this? Intracellular water is water within the muscle, and extracellular water is water outside of the muscle. And extracellular water is an estimation of inflammation in the body. So when you have more water outside of your lean tissue, that is inflammation. And then I'm going to go straight over here and you'll see Inbody score. And basically this is giving you a number, a report card type number on all of the different interpretations on here, and it gives you a score out of 100. So for example, this person got 83% on the test. So that means out of all the testing, they scored an 83. Next up is muscle fat analysis. So again, it's just taking, again, your weight and showing it here. You'll notice here there is a arrow pointing down, like a minus sign, and an arrow pointing up. And again, this is taking in interpretation, it's taking in empirical estimations, again, based off of your height, weight, and your age. So this arrow down means below average. The minus sign means average, and this sign means above average. So this person kind of falls within the average on weight, and then the skeletal muscle mass is on the average scale as well. And for this number, I don't see anything wrong with having a high muscle mass. Like, it's good to have above average muscle mass. And then you'll see here body fat mass. Again, this person is within the average range. Over here, BMI, again, taking that into consideration, the below average, average, above average. I personally don't really consider this to be a huge factor, especially if you have a lot of lean tissue. So if you're in the above average range, which, you know, in the medical system is considered unhealthy, to be much of an issue if you are an active individual. And then body fat percentage. So what this number means is it's just taking into account your weight. So for example, this number will vary based on how much you weigh. It doesn't take into consideration your height. So for this number, it's just a ratio of your height and the fat on your body. And then we'll go into segmental lean mass, and again, below average, average, above average. And then you'll notice here, so the first number is the actual pounds on your body, and then you'll notice the percentage number below. And so 100% is average, and anything above 100% is above average. So for this particular individual, they have 12.6% above average lean tissue on their right arm, and then 111.2 on their left arm, and so on and so forth. So just taking into those considerations, ideally you want to be at least 100 in all these departments. So the other day I was looking at an individual sheet and they had like 140 and then 95. So they're definitely good on their upper body, but they needed to maybe include some more lower body exercises, just increasing that volume. And it also could be a few other things, maybe not eating enough protein, but if they have a high upper body and a lower body, just maybe some more exercises for that. And then over here, this is the ratio for the intracellular, extracellular water. And again, this is how you see where you're at on the angle and if you're in a healthy range. And this particular individual is within the healthy range. And then below here is just taking some of these numbers, and then that way you can see some of the numbers of above. You can kind of compare week to week and see if things are moving in the direction that you're hoping. Going back over here, so this is the SMI, so the skeletal muscle index, and this is basically anything I believe below a 5 means that you need to increase your skeletal muscle index, and it's going to kind of interpret how you're going to age. So if that's below a certain number, it could mean that if you were to continue doing what you're doing and maybe not doing any changes to increase your muscle mass, whether or not you are going to be kind of a frail older person. So we want to keep this number high to prevent that. And then over here is the body fat-free mass control. So this scale gives you interpretation and maybe it suggests if you need to increase your body fat-free mass or decrease your body fat mass. So it'll give you a number here of like what is suggestion to kind of work on. And then over here is the segmental fat mass analysis. So for this particular person, again, out of 100, so they have 1.8 pounds of body fat on, looks like each arm. And then on their trunk, they've got 15.4 pounds of body fat. And then on each leg, it has 4.9 and 4.9. And then it'll give you a percentage as to like 100% again would be in the average range, and anything below or above is either below average or above average. And then we have this neat little area here, which I love seeing, is the visceral fat level. So there's two different types of body fat on our body. There's subcutaneous, which is the stuff that you can visually see, and when you jump up and down, it jiggles. And that is considered a healthy fat. And then there's visceral fat, which lies behind the organs and kind of presses outwards. So for example, to give you a visual, have you ever seen a man that has like a big, hard belly? That's usually visceral fat because it doesn't jiggle and it's like this hard mass. And what it's doing is it's pressing the organs from behind outwards and kind of pressing them against on the outer part of your body, which is very unhealthy and is usually an indicator of heart disease and things like that. So you want this number to be as low as possible to obviously prevent that. Next up is the basal metabolic rate. And so this is the amount of calories that you would need just to sustain like a comatose state. For example, what your body needs just to function, all of its internal processes, basically the bare minimum just to lie there and exist. This number ideally is higher because then you're going to burn more calories throughout the day just at a sitting rate. So for example, the more lean tissue on your body that you have, the higher this number is going to be. because your body requires more food to just sustain. And then this goes into research parameters of fat-free mass, arm circumference, and all these other data pieces here. And then it goes into segmental loss and then the impedance. If you have any other questions regarding your test, feel free to reach out to your coach. I also want to kind of go over into this area because this is the week by week type of analysis. You see a little bit of a snap sheet here. And then over here, this is where it's great to see week by week. I will say I wouldn't take it week by week, but you'll start to see a bit of a trend. So for example, you'll notice here, especially for women, men also have a hormonal cycle as well. But you'll notice a trend with the numbers. So like these 2 weeks are in line, and then these 2 weeks are in line, so on and so forth. So if you were to do it week by week, so maybe more so over here, because I believe these tests are more week to week. Okay, yes. So forget that for a second, because those dates, I was just looking at the dates. I'm like, those are too far apart to see the trend. But you'll start to notice a trend around the hormonal cycle. It starts to develop a pattern. So like for every 2 weeks for a woman's cycle pattern, there'll be 20% carrying more body fat to support that. And a thing to kind of watch out for is that you want your lean mass to increase and ideally body fat to decrease. And sometimes that takes a little bit longer for the body fat piece. But if you're noticing a decline in both, that's usually an indication of either not enough food or not enough protein in the day to sustain your activity levels. So sometimes when you get ill and you're not able to eat as much, they both decrease. And that's usually fine. It'll usually come right back up as soon as your appetite increases. But those are just some things to kind of watch for if you're noticing skeletal muscle mass decrease as well as your body fat, because ideally body fat is decreasing, or once you kind of hit your area, it's not going to really change a whole lot, and that's okay. And same with muscle mass. Like once you've kind of reached your peak, there's going to be some little changes, but if you drastically change your diet, you're going to definitely see it in here. And ideally, basal metabolic rate, it slowly starts to climb as you bring up your lean tissue in your body. Again, if you have any other questions regarding this sheet and how to interpret it, or you have specific questions regarding your sheet, always ask your coach and they'll do their best to interpret it. And if they don't have the answer right away, I'm sure they will do the research to find it for you. I hope you're having a great day and I hope this was helpful. Bye for now.